Good afternoon. Thank you for coming today. Today is a regular public open forum the President sponsors. We hold these monthly, the Friday after a board meeting, so we can update the campus on relevant actions that the board has taken, relative concerns that appear at a board meeting, and also update you on other events or issues that are in the offing. So thank you for coming. Also, I want to remind you, and you can remind your colleagues, that these are being videotaped and are posted on the homepage under President's Open Forum, so anybody can access them at any time. If anyone here has to leave early and want to come back and check it, or if you want to check out really what was said, not what you heard from somebody else, then this is a good source to go back to. We also, working with the County Office of Education, make this available on Charter Cable 19, so the public is fully aware and can tune in and see what's going on at Cuesta College and be informed more and hear the actual facts rather than what they read in the paper necessarily or hear in the market. Okay. All right, so let me first of all talk about the board meeting. You know, the board meets the first Wednesday of every month, and this particular month, being March, it meets in the South County. So we meet at Lucia Mar School District. The North County board meeting is held in October. So this is an annual event that we do. We did find some technical difficulties, and I think we're going to have to address that with the board, and that is if we are going to be at an off-site, you know, we really do need some kind of communication for public and staff who can't get to the off-site location. So if we can work with Lucia Mar School District to accommodate people in the San Luis area and North County to attend the meeting through Polycom, then that would be a really important addition to our ability to serve and be more open with our board meetings. The board meeting always starts out with a closed session. And in closed session, the board deals with personnel actions, negotiation actions, and litigation. So under the personnel actions, the board approved appointments. This is where they approve the short-term temporary employees that work on our campus to do special projects. They also approved the appointment of an admissions records clerk. This is a position at the South County, which was formerly an hourly position, and it was one of the conversions. It's a half-time position. Also an appointment for the Student Center Assistant Receptionist. This was a full-time position that was vacated through a resignation, and it was brought back at a half-time basis, and that position was filled. And then also under our Workforce and Economic Development, which is a categorically funded or grant-funded program, the board appointed a job developer. And then all of the part-time faculty assignments and overload assignments for permanent faculty was also approved in this agenda. The board also approves any changes in employment. One of the changes was it approved an unpaid leave of absence for a faculty member who requested a leave. We had a resignation from one of the Workforce and Economic Development programs, which is the categorical. We had a retirement of a groundskeeper, who we all know. And also the board took action to do a non-reelection of a probationary faculty member who is up for tenure. The board is updated on where we are with negotiations with our classified union and also with the faculty union. And the board also met with legal counsel in closed session to discuss a topic which can end up in litigation, and that is how board members are elected. Right now, our board members run by districts. So we have 5 different supervisorial districts which our board members represent, but they're elected at large, which means that any one of us can vote for any one of the board members, but the board members have to run in the district in which they reside. That has been challenged in many districts under the California Public Rights Act, Voter Rights Act, in the fact that there is some disparate distributions of individuals within the districts, and sometimes it's virtually impossible for a majority representative from a district to get elected because the rest of the county would overcome that or overpower that particular litigation or that election. So there has been litigation more in the K-12 districts than in community college districts. And so the move is to go to a district election. So if you lived in San Luis Obispo and you wanted to run for the board, then you would be a candidate, but only the people within the San Luis Obispo district would be able to vote for that candidate. So it's truly more of a representative vote representing an individual. So we've begun the process to look at that. We worked with all the county schools to look at a demographic study to see what our exposure was, the exposure as a district, to see if we had some significant imbalance within our county which would make us vulnerable. And really the study came back and said we really weren't vulnerable, but it's just a good idea to start moving in that direction. So we are going to bring it back to the board in open session for them to actually take a vote and to pass a resolution to move in that direction. And then it takes several months in order to actually activate that. So we're going to be targeting the 2014 board election to have it in place for that time. We have an election coming up this November for 3 seats on the board, but it'll be conducted what we call the hybrid method, which is run by districts but elected at large. The other important piece about why we should go to this system is it'll save us between $50,000 and $100,000 every election. Because when we have to have it run in all the precincts, we have to pay for the ballots that occur in all of those precincts. But if we run by district, we only have to pay for the district in which that election is being held. So it's an economic decision as well as a representative decision that we're really concerned about. So you'll hear more about that, but I just want to make you aware that that's in the pipeline for that. So then the board then comes back into open session and hears from the constituent groups. They hear from Academic Senate, they hear from the CCCUE, they hear from CCFT, and also the Management Senate. And probably the most significant thing that was brought up in the open session you might have read about in the newspaper today, and that was a resolution that the CCFT president read in open session, which was a resolution expressing disapproval of the Board of Trustees. And they expressed a dire concern that the board hasn't taken strong enough leadership in terms of the accreditation issue and felt that it needed to take a more active role. They needed to hold people accountable. And of course, you know, the board hires one person, and that's the president. And so ultimately, the president is responsible to make sure that we are in compliance and that we have the right people in the right positions to help do that. So I'm charged by the board to make sure that we do carry out that responsibility. And it's also my responsibility and authority to make changes where I see necessary. And so I am in the process of evaluating our structure and looking to see where we have weaknesses and where we need to make some changes. And that'll be another conversation. But anyway, that was the essence of, or the background of this resolution. And you can say, well, why now? You know, every organization has a right to express their opinion, whatever they want to. I don't necessarily agree with the timing, but that's my opinion. I'm not sure it's healthy for this opinion to be suddenly something that we want to float in the public at a time when we're vulnerable, and a time when we're trying to generate and establish our maximum enrollment through summer so that we can achieve some of our fiscal goals. But we'll deal with that part of it. But we'll never deny any organization or any person their right to express their opinion. We just will adjust to it. So in open session, after that we go into our regular agenda, we hear reports. We changed the order of the agenda a little bit so we could talk about the budget and we could talk about accreditation. And so Vice President Sommer gave an update on the budget, which pretty much parallels what I told you on January 13th and opening day, and that is that we were going to be faced with about a $3 million shortfall that we were going to have to address in the preparation of the 12-13 budget. And most of that is caused by a significant hit that we got in mid-year. If you remember, we were planning for, if property taxes didn't achieve the level that the governor had hoped for, we'd be hit with about a $700,000 mid-year hit, which we called Trigger 1 and Trigger 2. Well, those triggers got a little bit bigger. Trigger 1 was a $245,000 hit, and Trigger 2 was a $605,000. So that was about over $800,000 that we knew we were going to get. Then in January, we were also told that since the state did not collect as much student fees as had anticipated, reason for two parts. One was they delayed the implementation of the $46 a unit fee till summer, so they missed a whole semester of collection. And second of all, by increasing the fees for this year, more students qualified for the Board of Governors fee waiver, so there were fewer students paying the fee. So we got hit with another $800,000 of shortfall mid-year. And then, if that wasn't enough, then in February, we got the February surprise, which was the fact that the state discovered that in December, they were under-collecting on property tax. So we got hit with another $200,000 cut. So when you put all those things together, our mid-year cut was about $2 million. Now, we had planned for $700,000 to $800,000 cut. And we were going to cover that through basically four sources. One was the President and the Vice Presidents took a voluntary pay reduction, which is about $20,000. We were going to have about $250,000 of salary savings from open positions across the board. We had another $30,000 of savings through not buying some of the things that we needed in terms of supplies and operating materials. And then we were going to backfill the rest with money from our contingency account, so we wouldn't have to go in and cut more mid-year. Well, when the price tag went up another $1.2 million, the only resource that we could really turn to is our contingency account, which we had about $3 million in our contingency account. So right away, that's taking almost $2 million off the top, which gives us a small cushion now to deal with next year, to start the year with. So that was kind of laying out the groundwork in terms of what our challenge is. The Planning and Budget Committee met also this week, and they also outlined the next steps in terms of the budget development process. I was charged 2 meetings ago when we set the target of what would be the target that we would shoot for. Would we shoot for a $2 million budget reduction or a $3 million? $2 million meant that we would have to use $1 million out of our contingency account, which is already saying up front we're going to spend the money and not have anything for a mid-year crisis again. So the Planning and Budget Committee voted to approve a $3 million target and charged me to develop a budget reduction plan that would achieve that. So we've been working on that, and next Tuesday, March 13th, in this room, we're holding a joint Planning and Budget and College Council meeting, which will be open to the campus, and I've been asked to come and present in general broad strokes what the budget reduction plan looks like. So it'll be in categories, and it'll be by clusters, categories, and other strategies that have been utilized to gain that, as well as I'll share with you kind of the rubric or guiding principles that I've been using in terms of making decisions about what we need to do and how we're going to get there. Part of that, obviously, given where we've been and that we had to cut over $2 million this last year, and we had to affect people, this one we have to affect people again. So it'll affect all levels of this institution, from management to faculty to classified employees. And so that process will be unveiled on the 13th. I will be meeting with the Planning and Budget Committee the following week on the 20th to talk more specifically about some of the details of the plan. And between the 20th and the April 4th board meeting, I'll be meeting with any individuals who are affected by the budget reduction plan and the recommendation I'll be taking to the board on April 4th. On April 4th, I will be taking a recommendation to our Board of Trustees for them to take action so that we can start preparing the tentative budget, which has to be approved in June. It also then gives us time to negotiate with our unions aspects of the budget reduction plan which are negotiable. And it also gives us more time from April to June 30 than we did last year and when we took it to the board in May. So that's kind of the scenario and the layout of the budget process and where we're going to go and what the timeline is. As you may know or recall that in early February, after we were notified about our change of sanction level from probation to show cause, one of the changes I made was to reassign the accreditation liaison officer responsibilities, and I removed those from Dr. Greiner and appointed Dean Deborah Wolf as the ALO. And since then, she is responsible for overseeing the accreditation, the response to the accreditation report. And she and Kevin Bontenball, our Academic Senate President, are co-chairing the Accreditation Steering Committee. They, along with a consultant that the district is working with from an organization, a consulting firm called the College Brain Trust, have made significant progress since that early time. It's been less than 2 months since we got the word, and we've made a lot of progress at this point. There will be a workshop Monday afternoon from 1 to 5, and what the workshop will be doing, we'll be taking a look at our educational master plan, which when developed created some core principles, which are more themes. And what our master plan was really lacking was some more specific goals, institutional goals. So what the workshop will be on Monday, and we invite anybody to come to that and participate because we need as much input as possible from people that it affects. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be analyzing all the data that's in the educational master plan and identifying what the challenges are for us. You know, what's happening with our K-12 graduating seniors? Or do we have a declining enrollment in our district? Do we have growing enrollment? Are we getting the largest percentage of high school seniors graduating coming to Cuesta College? That's our future, is the number of students that we're going to continue to get. So that can be a challenge. That could be a challenge. So what kind of an institutional goal can we create that will help us deal with that particular challenge? So that's kind of the essence of what's going to happen on Monday. We're not looking for 47 institutional goals. We're looking for goals that will match up and work on challenges that are achievable and that we can generate and direct our resources, both human resources and monetary resources, to actually accomplish those, and that they will make a difference in terms of the output of the college, whether it be in learning or whether it be in efficiency. And that's part of the integrated planning process that we're also working on, and that's what we're held accountable for under the most important recommendation of that sanction, which is on integrated planning. The Accreditation Steering Committee has produced a draft. It's called Draft 3 of the Integrated Planning Manual. We'll continue to work on that. But we need to establish the institutional goals. A subsequent workshop on the 21st will be to then write objectives and action steps to update to create a new strategic plan, which will be actually the engine that helps activate what we're doing. And all of this stuff that we're talking about here is also to lead us to the point where we really come up with institutional priorities which serve and meet the objectives and the goals, and where we put our resources. Okay. And that's the essence of what an integrated planning. So we've been pretty good at developing plans. We're tweaking plans because they're not necessarily saying all the right things. But more importantly, it's how the plans talk to each other. It's like putting a puzzle together. You can have all the great pieces in the world, but if they don't fit together in the right way, they don't create an image, they don't create a message. And that's really what the integrated process is. We're on a very tight timeline. We need to be done with the majority of our work by the middle of May. Because what happens in the middle of May, much of our institution goes away for a period of months. All right? So we need to have all the players actively working between now and May. So it's really, when we start, it's about a 90-day project. So what is the expectation then? The expectation is we'll do some tweaking over the summertime. We come back in August. We have about the middle of August to the middle of September to really fine-tune and get our plan airtight, get our issues done with our technology, make sure technology is integrated in the process, and that we have identified funding resources to support technology. And let me just say that on Monday, our foundation and its executive committee approved and took action to approve the distribution of 50% or $100,000 from the annual fund drive every year to be directed towards institutional priorities for technology. So that's a huge investment by our foundation, and it's a huge step forward for us to really solvently address the recommendation that we have. Our tech committee, and with the help of a lot of other people, has put together a very solid technology plan. The piece that we really needed was resources. And then how do we integrate the goals of the technology plan or any other operational plan into meeting the objectives and the goals of the college. The third piece of the recommendation was on fiscal solvency. And of course, in this particular economic time, that's a challenge for everybody. But what we're writing to here is how we are facing not only short-term budget challenge, but also long-term. You may or may not know, but over the last several years, the college has borrowed money to finish buildings, to equip buildings, because the state never funds enough of the whole project. So what happens is you go out and borrow money to fill in the gap. Well, the college made some decisions over time that they could borrow the money so we can finish the project and then hopefully float a bond and pay off those debts. But as you all are aware of, the bond didn't pass. It went in 2006. So we're left with a sizable debt, which is about $1.6 million a year of a payment that we have to make. And that'll extend for another, I think it's 7 years, and it'll drop down $300,000 when one of the notes is paid off. So the concern is, how do we relieve ourselves of that long-term debt? There's not too many ways to do that. We constantly, on an annual basis, we revisit to look at refinancing, looking at interest rates, looking at options, and we've done all that. And right now, we have no advantages to solve it that way. Another way is to, at some point, pass a bond that generates some revenue to pay down those notes or pay them off. Bond campaigns right now are iffy, and the timing is everything. In this county, it's a tricky county in terms of its voting record. So we're studying that issue. But it's not something that's going to happen instantaneously. So the best way to accommodate the solvency on long-term debt is, number one, it's got to be built into the budget. It's got to be a line item. It's got to be something that you pay first. It's like your own household expense. You pay those bills first, and then you deal with what's left over in order to, whether you can go to the movie or whether you can't go to the movie, whether you can go out to eat or not. But you don't do the other first and then not pay your bills. So we pay that premium. We've never missed a payment. We will never miss a payment. And we'll do it with the fact that it comes off the top. So that's where we are. I want to remind you, too, that for all employees and public, and this is where you can help us in terms of informing your colleagues or informing your neighbors who have questions about accreditation, the college has developed really a nice website right off the front page. If you go to the Cuesta.edu and click on Accreditation Update, you'll see the latest and greatest site where all of the accreditation information is located. All of the previous reports, midterm reports, follow-up reports, the commission letters, to see what they're saying about Cuesta College and what our response has been. But you can also get a weekly update that Kevin and Deb produce on a weekly basis to update all of us as to what's going on, where we are in the process, what's coming down the pike, where are there opportunities for each of us to get involved in the process. So look for that and guide people to that. So if they want accurate, consistent information, that's a source that we're trying to make available for everybody. So that was kind of the overview of what we brought the board up to speed on in terms of where we were with budget, what the next steps were involved in, and then what was going on with accreditation. And then we went into action items. The first action item, which was probably the most interesting one for the public and most concerned one for the public, was a resolution that I brought to the board to activate a faculty layoff. Now, the significance of this is the fact that the college has never initiated a permanent faculty layoff resolution before. And it's not you read about it in the paper all the time for K-12 districts in budget time. You see how many pink slips, you just saw about Paso Robles issuing 30 pink slips and to permanent employees. Well, there's a couple things that happen. One is, under the California Education Code, if you're going to make and eliminate a permanent faculty position or an academic manager, then they have to be notified by March 15th that there's an intent to lay off. And then in May is when the board would take official action to actually activate the layoff for July 1st. Why you don't see it happening a lot in community colleges is because we have so many part-time faculty which are layered on top of the permanent faculty. So if we're reducing, say, a history program, and we needed to reduce 10 sections of classes, the first to be eliminated would be part-time faculty. And until all the part-time faculty were eliminated, you wouldn't get into the permanent faculty. Well, it just so happens that the area that was under question was in our Disabled Student Services Programs and Services, our DSPS program. And really the end result of this action was predicated on a continuing pattern by the state of California to defund special programs. And one of the programs that have been hit the hardest has been DSPS. And 4 years ago, the state was allocating $1 million a year to our DSPS program. The district was contributing $384,000 a year as a historical match, a historical contribution. But the expenses of that program were running about $250,000 above those two sources. So the college was absorbing that into the general fund. Well, as we progress through the next 3 years, the second year in 2009-10, the program was cut by $500,000. The funding was cut almost in half, or actually $400,000 that year. This district still contributed to the $384,000, but there was an overrun again of about $180,000. So over the last 4 years, the state has continually reduced the funding. We've been reducing positions within DSPS over those 4 years. The 2 years before I got there, actually it started back in 2002-03 where the first cuts were happening. But the more significant ones have happened where we have not filled part-time instructional aid and associate positions. We laid off a classified employee. We didn't fill a retirement of a classified employee. And what has been, the attempt has been to preserve the mandated and required accommodations that we have to provide our students. And so the area where there was any ability to achieve a savings of that overrun, which this year is projected to be about $180,000, is to look at the faculty positions within that area. There are no part-time faculty that are doing the disability services And so I recommended that we lay off and defund 2 of the positions. And the 2 least senior positions, of course, using the seniority process, were identified to be the funding to be eliminated for those 2 positions. Well, under the faculty service area, if in fact you have another, what we call an FSA, a faculty service area, meaning that you have minimum qualifications to teach or provide a service in another area, then we can look at, it's just like on classified service, some of you have bumping rights, others don't have bumping rights. So it's the same kind of concept for faculty. There are bumping rights if they have faculty service areas in another area. Well, these 2 individuals had another faculty service area, which is in academic skills. And there are 2 permanent faculty members in academic skills, both of whom were more senior than these 2. But there was also about 20 sections of classes taught by part-time. So what happens now is that these 2 faculty members will not lose their tenured permanent status, but they'll be moved into and displace the work of part-time faculty. Who falls outside at the end of the food chain, obviously, will be several part-time faculty members who will be displaced from part or all of their work. So we'll be working on how that works, how that fits together. There's some interest in looking at some combinations of those 2, LD, learning disability specialist, and teaching. But we have until May to make final decisions. And so this could turn out to be, end up being a reassignment as the end result. But we do have some flexibility in that. So that was the resolution. The board did approve that resolution unanimously, and we moved on from there. The second thing that the board approved was a contract. Now, I said we had engaged the services of a consultant, Dr. Eva Conrad, who's a wonderful professional. I've known her for about 20 years. She's a former president at Moorpark College and now works for the Brain Trust as a consultant. And so we entered into a contract with the Brain Trust. We set it up on a per diem basis, so we contracted for a certain number of days of service, and we only pay for the days that we actually use. So we wrote the contract to make sure we had enough days, so we had 25 days for a contract of about $46,800, I believe it was. And if we use part of that, fine. If we use all of it, then I'd have to go back to the board to get approval to use more money on that. So that's the contract that they approved. The funding for that is coming from one-time only salary savings of positions that are open that we haven't replaced at this point or do not plan on replacing. And that service is being provided as we speak. The board approved 2 resolutions. One resolution was recognizing the month of March as Women's History Month, and a resolution was read and received by the board. And also a resolution reestablishing our commitment to diversity, diversity of all kinds, whether it be diversity of thought, diversity of race, diversity of religion, and all the other protected diversities. We are a diverse community. We are a diverse community in terms of what we think, what we feel, what we look like, what we believe in, and the thing that we always have to strive for is to respect that, to respect each other's differences. Then the board also had a really fun thing to do, and that was to approve a naming opportunity. We have 2 really, really great friends of the college, one who is living and the other one who died, and that's Dan and Alberta Deutsch. They are transplants from Visalia. They used to be red-hot Giant fans at, I would say, San Francisco Giants, but College of Sequoia Giants. And they were red-hot advocates and supporters of College of Sequoias. They relocated to Morro Bay, and they've become red-hot Cougar fans. And Dan served on our foundation board for several years. His wife, Alberta, and Dan served on our athletic booster club, and they have contributed well over $250,000 to the college and the district over the last 10 to 15 years. Well, Alberta unfortunately died a few years ago from cancer, a battle with cancer. And Dan has established scholarships in her name, also a scholarship in the name of a daughter who they also lost earlier. But the most recent donation that Dan gave us was $35,000 to replace the two scoreboards, one at our baseball field and one at our softball field. And so we took a recommendation to the board, to ask the board to name and to recognize Dan and Alberta Deutsch on both of the scoreboards. There will be a plaque put on both of those. And those will be commemorated on two occasions. One is tomorrow. Tomorrow there's a home baseball game. I believe it's at 12:30, and there will be a ceremony recognizing Dan and his family at that site. And then on the 20th, at about the same time, 12:30, over in the softball field, we have a home softball game, and there will be another ceremony recognizing Dan as the plaque is unveiled for that. The plaques actually won't be there yet, but they'll have one of these drawings that kids do. No, they'll have something really nice as a placeholder for that. So that so those were the significant actions, and you notice that board agendas are filled with a lot of stuff. Some of it's really hard. It's really tough. It's very involved. It impacts people, impacts students, it impacts all of us employees. And yet they also, on the same agenda, will be celebrating achievements, celebrating recognitions of philanthropy and great generosity to the college and the district, and dealing with how we're going to get through the next year, the next 2 years, and continue to be a successful college and have the reputation that we've enjoyed and will continue to enjoy of being a very unique and very special place. And if you've never had the opportunity to attend a board meeting, I wouldn't put it at the top of your list, if you have another alternative, but it is, I say that from having, I don't know how many board meetings I've attended. But, they are important, because the Board of Trustees is ultimately the decision maker for the institution. They have the responsibility to make decisions, to make policy that guide what we do and how we do it in serving our students and the public. And they're lay people. They're people who are volunteering their service because their commitment to us and to the college, and serve in that capacity faithfully. And sometimes they make good decisions. Sometimes they make difficult decisions. Sometimes you may question their decision. It's my job to prepare them as best possible so they can make the best informed decision that they can on our behalf and our students' behalf. So, excuse me. So at this point, I would just like to open it up, see if you have any questions, any comments. And I want to remind you that Tuesday we'll have the joint meeting, which is open to everybody, on the first glimpse of the budget reduction plan. And I also remind you about Monday afternoon, if you have time and you can be here, to participate in the workshop to look at developing institutional goals, be there, or on Wednesday the 21st, when we're working on the strategic plan to develop objectives and action steps as a critical part of our ability to write a successful integrated planning manual. So with that, I want to thank you for being here. If there are questions, just raise your hand. We have a roving mic. My name's Emma. Or comments? And this is the mic-ette. This is Lisa.
Stand up. You just stand up.
You have to stand up so they can get a camera on you. See? Yeah.
You may have addressed this. I was a little late. We have a wonderful swim meet going on over there. There's like 26 colleges over there swimming. I'm hearing more and more, and I'm a little concerned, you may have addressed this, that there are a lot of students commenting that we're not going to be here in the spring and that they are going to be going to Allen Hancock and other colleges. What are we doing to ensure that assure the students that we are going to be here in the fall and we are going to be here in the spring?
Well, for a great deal. If there are our students now and they haven't heard about it, then I'm very surprised about it, because we have sent messaging to all of our faculty. We've sent messaging to all of our students through their communication, exactly what's happening, what this sanction means, what the timeline is. And so, just to reiterate that, even if the Commission in January of 2013 says that we have not met the standard and they're going to not allow us to continue on show cause or move us to probation or to reaffirm us, then the earliest the college would lose its operational status would be summer of 2013. So that would be the timeline. And even if it shut down, there are provisions to maintain part of the college while certain programs are being completed. Like a nursing program, for instance, might have to continue in order to complete that 2-year cycle. So it doesn't just abruptly end. And this is kind of uncharted waters, because no college has ever faced that before. Okay. So we are kind of guessing to some degree, but the conversation I've had with the Commission office, they're kind of describing it in oblique terms also, because they've never had to do this before. And we're not intending to do that, but we want to make sure, and this is part of this, this challenge we have, the challenge we have about keeping people informed, and it's kind of a delicate balance, because sometimes the more we inform, the more people who know nothing about it suddenly know something about it and get concerned. And so you don't want to overtalk it, and yet you don't want to miss the opportunity to make sure people are informed. So there is messaging coming out of our marketing office that you'll see. And we're also promoting a robust summer session, as well as continuing the messaging on accreditation, what that means. We are accredited. We will remain accredited. Your units still count. The classes will still transfer if they are transfer classes. There was some confusion that some student who was in a Math 123 class told me, he said, "You mean my class will transfer now?" I said, "No, no, no. No, no, only if it's a transferable class will it transfer," you know. So some people are getting a little more excited than they should be, you know. But it is serious business, and our counseling department hosted a county high school counselors conference, and the message was given them, because they're the first line of contact with our high school and the seniors and juniors who are trying to make decisions about what they might do. So when if you hear a pocket or you hear something where it seems like there's an area or a category that's not getting messaging, let our marketing officer, let Shannon know or Jill know about that, so we can make sure we get the right information there. Because we all have a responsibility for that, you know. And we need to be equipped with the right information. So if we're confused, that's dangerous, you know. Yeah. Hi, Eileen.
Kind of to piggyback on what Debbie was saying, a lot of people are saying, well, we're just going to become Allen Hancock, and I am confused as to how to say yes or no, or, you know, I mean, obviously not too much information, you know, raises eyebrows, but can you explain
Sure.
if we were, what we are to say about that, because I'm going, never will we be Allen Hancock.
I know it. You know, growing up in San Luis Obispo, I hate Santa Maria, you know. So you know, to be taken over by a Santa Maria entity is you know, I'll take my ankles first for that, you know. Well, if you read the policy on the Accreditation Commission policy, and you read the policy on closing an institution, there's a provision there where you have to answer that question. You have to address that issue. And the most recent case that happened was Compton College, which lost its accreditation due to some embezzlement of the financial side of it. And so they disbanded their board of trustees, and El Camino College in Torrance agreed to take over the management of that institution. It's being called the El Camino's Compton Center or whatever, until they can rebuild their accreditation status. So it didn't close down, it took on a different management style. Where we're located, because the closest district to us is Allen Hancock District, it makes a lot of sense that we would look at if we had to, rather than disband this and leave all of this infrastructure empty and unused and students being sent all over the place. It doesn't make any sense to do that other than looking at the possibility of seeing what would happen if we could work with another district until we repaired whatever it had to be repaired at that time. So that's where that came from. And that is when you think about it, it's really a logical conclusion. It'd be the same thing if it was the reverse. It would make a lot of sense for two neighboring districts to work together to maintain the opportunities and access to education. Okay? Yeah, no. Yeah. Over there. The young man from Tacoma.
Thanks for the young part. I just wanted to remind, we do have talking points and Q&A for students, and it sounds like maybe we need to redistribute those again. Because they answer all those questions, and you can actually hand them to them. You don't have to worry about if you're saying the right thing or not. So
Okay.
we could do that.
Yeah, and I believe that's also posted too on the MyQuesta student site.
This is back on the budget deficit issue. I haven't heard any talk about reserve this year. Is there anything above the state mandated reserve available, and could it soften?
Well, let me just give you a little reality check on reserve. The state requires a 5% reserve of total budget. Our board policy is 6% of state and local income. So when you actually bring in federal, we're right about we're just above the 5%. So we are at the lowest we can be. In reality, the amount of reserve we have barely pays for 1 month of payroll. So if we went into our reserves, we couldn't meet payroll. So there's this myth about, well, why don't we just spend down our reserves? Well, as soon as we spend them down, then we'll be a Paso Robles High School, and that is we'll be in receivership in terms of somebody coming in and taking over. So that's not an option. And the other part is because of the fact that when the state reduces our income and we apply that 6% to a smaller number, guess what happens to the reserve? It gets smaller, doesn't it? So we were at a $52 million budget. We're now going to be at a $45 million budget. And if you look at 6% of, we went from, 3 million down to 2,700,000 or 2,800,000, or excuse me, yeah, in terms of reserve. So it's really, that's why our contingency money that we've set aside, that we've earned because we hit the medium-sized college in 2008, that's become really our reserve, which we've used to be able to balance out the budget. That could be folded into the reserve, but we want to keep it identified separately so we know what we're using and we identify it as one-time only money. And this particular year is the last year of the $1.1 million. And that's why summer is so hugely important for us, because if we have a robust summer session, we can hit that medium-sized college threshold again, which has been lowered in proportion to the declining state funding. Which will make us eligible for another $1.1 million for 3 years. So that's going to be a necessary thing to add to the health of our ability to get through the next couple of years, hoping that we're bottoming out. The good news in the state budget, initial state budget, is there were no cuts for community colleges. So what we're dealing with, this $3 million, is not about next year. It's about carrying over all the whacking we got done this year and rolling it into next year. But you've also seen that in the next year's budget, that if the tax initiative doesn't pass in November, then we're going to be reduced 481 full-time equivalent students, going from 8,600 down to 8,100, which is about 160 sections of classes, and it's about $2.2 million in reduction of funding. Now, some of that will be offset by the fact that we will be offering fewer classes, so we won't be paying salaries on that. So we'll actually have a net loss of about half of that. So And I don't know if you've been watching, right now there are three initiatives that are moving forward. One is the governor's, one is by California Federation of Teachers, is that right, Allison? And the other one is by Molly Munger. Right. There are three, and it's not the fact that any one is any better than the other. It's the fact that if you've got more than one, or if you've got more than two, what does that do to the electorate? It splits votes. It confuses people. They end up not voting, or they vote for, everybody votes for a different one. So it's not, it almost assures that probably nothing will pass, you know. But we don't know yet. You know, that's, there hasn't been a, those haven't been, I don't know if the other two have been actually, they've gotten the signatures. They are both valid now? Yeah. Yeah, Allison? Yeah. Okay, we got,
Oh, she had something.
yeah.
So I was just going to say there is a difference. Actually, the CFT Millionaires Tax Initiative, I have the propaganda with me, provides an ongoing funding stream for California community colleges into perpetuity. The first payout would be $5.8 million to Cuesta College, and then it would be 66% of that moving forward. The governor's tax initiative is less than that. It doesn't create an ongoing funding stream, and it ends in 5 years. So there is quite a bit of difference between those two that are both polling above 60% right now. And the Millionaires Tax Initiative is scheduled to make the ballot. The voters' petitions are gone out, and they're going to be about 500,000 signatures above what's required.
Yeah. So it's really an important issue for all of us as to how this is, how it ends up on the ballot, what ends up on the ballot, and what the campaign looks like in terms of really informing all of us, all of our friends, all of our neighbors, and the rest of the citizens of California as to what the impact really is going to mean. So, Peggy, yeah, you had a question.
So back to the issue of reassuring, obviously not just students, but the community, the campus community as well, that we will remain accredited through spring 2013, barring
Sure.
not meeting the show cause. Is there plans to market it, say, via the Questonian, that really nice flyer that marketing has come up with that very plainly points out are we accredited, and yes you are, yes your financial aid is good. Is that going to be put in the Questonian or other forms of communication so that everyone can see it?
Yeah, well, there's two. We're working not only with our own marketing company, we're working with Barnett Cox and Associates also, helping us with messaging both internally and externally, both on summer and also on accreditation. We want to be careful on the accreditation side. You know, the one that we're really looking at potential students and families, you know, families of potential students, to make sure they understand. And so we're directing all phone calls, all inquiries to Dr. Fontanilla's office, who's given the responsibility to give feedback, give a report back to anybody that asks a question about accreditation, because we are getting those questions, emails, phone calls, saying my son or daughter wants to come to Cuesta, but we just want to make sure is this going to be a good investment and for how long, etc. And usually when we talk to them about it, then they're fine with it. They understand it more completely. But that is, and as I said before, there's an art and balance between overstating it and understating it, and trying to find that medium balance. But I think right now our concern is more internal because we want students who are in progress, we want them to feel comfortable about summer, we want them to feel comfortable about fall and spring, because those are done deals, those are secure, and they would need to have that confidence that things are going to be, that they will not lose anything, you know, potentially by that. So I don't know, we've been interviewed on it and they've been given the information, so whether they publish it or not. We're also, you know, I don't know what's your, you know, we have a great friend. A great friend is called the New Times. And I say that emphatically because they have come a step forward and they have offered us in-kind advertising space to advertise whatever we need in terms of messaging the college on accreditation or summer. And the owner of the New Times is closely connected to a member of our foundation board and really believes in Cuesta College, and this is a really important, and he's willing to go to and work with us in approaching other media sources like the Slow Life magazine and the Slow Journal and others that people pick up and read a lot, and you're sitting waiting for your car to get washed, or, you're sitting in getting a haircut if you ever need a haircut, I say, like, well, I do once in a while. But those are those really important pieces that people read, and so we're looking for every opportunity we can to get that. Also, if you watch carefully and you see the bus system running throughout the county, look at the banners on the buses, because you're going to see something about Cuesta College coming up fairly shortly. And it's really going to be promoting our summer session, and so we'll watch for it. We're also really marketing heavily at Cal Poly, because Cal Poly has now they still have a summer session, but it's a pay for itself summer session. So students pay significant amount of money per unit. So we're talking about less than half the cost and less than half the time. Come to Cuesta College for summer, because that's where they need the GE.
Anyway, I'm really excited what we've been doing with our summer school advertising. I think it's really super. We have a colored flyer, kind of come on down. Summer school's going to be great. The only thing I could suggest is maybe put on a separate piece of paper all the online classes, because I think that's really attractive. And it's kind of embedded that we have some online classes on that original flyer. So I would love to see another flyer come out really kind of pushing the online, because that might be where some of our bread and butter is. It's just a suggestion as an employee.
And you know how important that option is for today's student, especially with gas prices at $4.50 a gallon, and the fact that most of our students work, and we have a lot of students who are dealing with child care, and so being able to be at a specific place at a specific time isn't always possible. And so having the flexibility to build out your program with 1 or 2 online classes is hugely important. So if I can reduce my trips to the campus to 2 days a week, and I can take a couple of classes online, that's to my advantage as a student. Yeah. So Jill heard you in the back, so I know that we'll incorporate that. So, all right, so we're about out of time, and again, thank you for being here. And make sure people, you tell people that, the information you heard, you think it's important for others to know, have them view the video. Okay? Just have a party and click on Cuesta.edu and go through the grind again. So I want to thank Pat Mullen, our board president, for being here today. He missed the board meeting, so he's making up his absence by being here today. And so anyway, so thank you for being here. Thank you.